Yes, we have him right outside of St. Benedict's Preparatory School. He is Father Edwin Leahy, the headmaster at St. Benedict's Prep in beautiful Newark, New Jersey, Brick City. Good to see you, Father Ed.
Good to see you, Steve.
By the way, the Gray Bees, that Chiron, that's the name. They're St. Benedict's Prep Gray Bees, right?
Correct. That's correct.
And sports is a big deal, but so is academics over at St. Benedict's Prep. Today, I want to heavily focus on an initiative that I saw on CBS News about the fact that your students interacting with state police personnel trying to have more of a dialogue. Describe it as we show some footage from that report.
So we had a couple of people that work with us on not on our board, but are friends of ours. After all this violence in cities and with especially people of color getting shot and troopers being under duress and when they make stops, we thought, well, is there a way where we can begin to get people to talk to each other, to understand each other's realities and so we took a crack at it. We have a group that we work with called Victory Road, which is our consultants. And they had done some work with the state police as well. And the state police were more than willing to participate with us. And that's kind of how it began. We started with a couple of evolutions out in our property in Sussex County, and then have done two of them here on the property. Actually, here on the property is, I think, much more helpful because everybody in the school can see it and meet the troopers when they come in the morning. So it's to try to get the troopers to understand the stresses of young people in the city, and to get the young people to understand what these happen to be troopers. We want to do it with police officers in municipal situations as well.
What are you hearing from your students, Father Ed?
You see, it's interesting because when the kids sit down with the troopers at the end of the day around the table and talk about who they are, what their experiences are, you begin to see walls fall down. It's actually interesting to watch because the ones that we do here, the kids are paired with a trooper. So they're with them all day trying to achieve these various challenges and competing against one another. So to be under duress and have to depend on each other is you begin to see mutuality start to happen rather than division. And I think that's been a revelation both to our kids and I think to the troopers.
So I'm curious about this. For those who don't know exactly where St. Benedict's Prep is, describe its location and its surroundings.
So St. Benedict's Prep is on King Boulevard in Newark. My guess is if you were to draw a circle around the city of Newark, the largest city in our state, you'd probably put the compass point on our roof. So we're right in the middle of the city, of the downtown area, just a block to our east, and then the Central Ward to our west, going towards Irvington on Springfield Avenue. So we're right in the middle of downtown, and the business community is around us, as well as a lot of the challenges that folks have who live in the city to our west.
Your students, the demographics, that population?
Mostly our students are young people of color from the African dispersion, as well as from Latin America. We go from grade 5 through grade 13, really. So there's 5-year-olds. We go from kindergarten to grade 13. We have 5-year-olds through 19-year-olds here in school. About just under 1,000 of them.
Let me disclose a couple of things. Usually it's about an underwriter of our programming, but I'm going to disclose that my son, Stephen Gregory, has been teaching at St. Benedict's Prep for several years in the areas of religion and theology. Yep. And my father, very much involved at St. Benedict's Prep for a long time, my late dad. And also, Father Ed, you don't like me to disclose this, but you are the spiritual advisor to our family.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, your father was an interesting influence on us here. I mean, it was not uncommon to go to church in the morning for our first prayer of the day and find your father sitting in the choir with the monks. Or on the other end of the day, to go to dinner at 6 o'clock and to find your father sitting at the table with the abbot, because he just felt at home here, I think, and was in and out frequently. And then was, as it turned out, and this is how I believe how the divine works, that when he was beginning to think about Robert Treat Academy,
a charter school that my dad founded, one of the first in the country. Go ahead, Father Ed.
Correct. And the first one in Newark.
That's right.
Noel, your nephew, was a student, which brought your father to school a lot of days with Noel. So he'd be sitting in our morning meeting, watching the meeting. And when they started Robert Treat Academy in the North, that morning meeting, I think, came out of his experience of our meetings here, that the kids at Robert Treat do even today. So the secret of all of this, even with the police, is to understand the reality and the sufferings of the other. And that's the biggest problem we have in the country right now. An inability to be willing to understand the suffering of the other person and the reality the other person lives with. And that's what we're trying to do with this building bridges. And I think that's the secret to life, frankly. But
Father Ed, before I let you go, give me a minute. The new girls prep division in August of 2020 started. Real quick, young women there as well.
Yeah, they broke in, Steve. I had nothing to do with it. We had no plans to have girls in school. The teenage girls, 8 of them, actually broke in because they connived with our guys and created a situation where it was impossible for me to say no to them. So it had nothing to do with adults, other than for the adults to give in to what these kids wanted to do. It was all teenage girls, and then in cooperation with teenage guys.
That's leadership.
That's that's what's possible in the city with kids who, if we unleash them and let them use their creative abilities and give them a voice. That's the biggest, most important thing. Give them a voice and have people listen. I had nothing to do with it. I tried to stop it, in fact, unsuccessfully.
Good. I'm glad you're unsuccessful. By the way, Father Edwin Leahy, the headmaster of St. Benedict's Prep in Newark, you became the headmaster when you were at the ripe old age of 26, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Correct, yes.
And I remember that I was at Essex Catholic, and a school around the corner, it doesn't even exist anymore. St. Benedict's Prep closed for 1 year, opened back up. There's a whole nother story there. By the way, check out the documentary. Real quick, what's the documentary called that it was?
There's one called The Rule. Then there was this, The Rule is one. And then there's one called Benedict's Men. It's a more recent one around the basketball team. And there is the 60 Minutes piece.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 60 Minutes. So what do we, chop liver? Thanks, Father Ed. Father Edwin Leahy, headmaster at St. Benedict's Prep in Newark. Thank you, Father Ed. 60 minutes.
You know who I am? Do you know who I am?
You know who I am? To quote, now you're quoting my father. I'm not going there. I got to end the show. This is my show. You don't get to close it. That's Father Ed. See you next time.
One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation. Funding has been provided by PSC&G, the Northward Center, the Healthcare Foundation of New Jersey, Atlantic Health System, Investors Bank, the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, the Fidelco Group, Delta Dental of New Jersey, and by the Russell Berry Foundation. Promotional support provided by NorthJersey.com and Local IQ, part of the USA Today network, and by CIANJ and Commerce Magazine.
I was diagnosed with cystic fibrosis when I was 2. It's hard to grow up with CF. But I have an awesome care team at Goriab Children's Hospital, helping me do the things I want to do, like play lacrosse. And now I've been recruited to play in college.
Where you go for pediatric care matters.
Atlantic Health System, because every moment is a moment that matters.